Hello, this is Philosophical Rebellion. The agenda of Donald Trump and the Republican Party so far has been to kick the American people off of programs designed to increase their welfare, while at the same time making sure that big business is able to screw over its customers and its workers without any oversight or ramifications. So Donald Trump's Republican Party really stands for the reverse Robin Hood, taking from the poor to give to the rich. And that's because Donald Trump and Elon Musk and the people that they have aligned with are the exact people that the father of capitalism warned us about. Adam Smith said, "All for ourselves and nothing for other people has, in every age, been the vile maxim of the masters of mankind." And that is the exact mentality that Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and the Republican Party adopts today. Their rhetoric might support workers, but their policy supports the economic interests of the 1%. Elon Musk has been using Doge to gut the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which makes sure that American consumers can be protected from fraud, like when Wells Fargo was ordered to return billions of dollars worth of stolen money from its own customers. And Elon Musk went in and fired most of the people who oversee autonomous vehicle safety regulations at the NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. And I asked Grok, which is the AI on X, if the rollout of Tesla's robotaxis have more to do with firing the government oversight versus Tesla actually achieving full self-driving. And even Grok does not believe that Tesla has achieved full self-driving and is instead rolling out its robotaxi as a result of Elon Musk firing the government oversight. They're getting rid of food inspectors at the FDA, or the administrators trying to enforce regulations on coal companies to make sure that their workers are protected from black lung. Elon Musk made sure that those government administrators were no longer there. When the businesses don't want to obey the law, the workers now have nowhere to turn to. And that goes a lot further than just coal miners, because Elon Musk has been destroying the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, to make sure that big corporations are able to put down any resistance from their workforce about the conditions of their labor or their wages, essentially trying to rob the working class of their right to unionize. And at the same time, the anti-monopoly cases from the Federal Trade Commission have been put on hold, at least for the billionaires who have been willing to pay Donald Trump bribes. So instead of continuing to serve the economic elites, I wish the Republicans would actually try to pass policy and enact an agenda that would genuinely help the working class. What we really need is the Bernie agenda. And what that would look like are extremely strong protections for worker unionization, strictly enforced anti-monopoly rules, strong regulations, and enough oversight to enforce them to make sure that businesses are not taking advantage of their consumers. Tax reform to totally eliminate income taxes on everybody making less than $100,000 a year. Then a truly progressive tax rate after that, which includes corporate income taxes. We also need a living wage as the minimum wage because the floor of our economy is set too low. So we have millions of full-time workers relying on welfare programs to cover basic needs. And that is actually just a subsidy for corporate America, where we are paying for their labor while they get to keep all of the profit. And in addition to that, we have a situation where the shareholders and the corporate executives are getting paid way, way, way too much money at the expense of the workers of those corporations. So the Walton family is taking way too much money and Walmart workers are not getting enough. Jeff Bezos is taking way too much money and Amazon workers are not getting enough. When a corporation has 1,000 to 1 pay ratio between the CEO and the average worker, that CEO is taking too much money at the expense of those workers. So we need income redistribution in the United States so that the working class starts to make a lot more and the shareholder and corporate executive class start to make a lot less. And a few of the ways that could be achieved is a maximum CEO to worker pay ratio. And I think the maximum of a 100 to 1 pay ratio seems fair. So that if an average McDonald's worker makes $20 an hour, the CEO could make $2,000 an hour. But if the CEO wants to make more money, he would then have to raise wages for the rest of the workforce. But the other aspect is the shareholder pay, and that's mostly in the form of dividends and stock buybacks. So I think that there should be laws that mandate that any money a corporation spends on stock buybacks or dividends must be matched with bonuses for the workers. So if a company is going to spend $100 million on stock buybacks, instead they have to spend $50 million on stock buybacks, and the other $50 million would be distributed among its entire workforce. And lastly, one of the most important things that the Republican Party could do to actually help America deal with our deficit problem is reducing the Pentagon's budget. The Pentagon has failed 7 audits in a row and is frequently unable to account for tens of billions to hundreds of billions of dollars every single year, adding up to trillions of dollars of lost money that they are unable to account for. Bernie Sanders has introduced legislation that would just mildly decrease the Pentagon's budget when they fail an audit. But that hasn't even gotten a vote and would never pass. So we should talk about the actual goal that we should have instead of half measures like that. And I think at the bare minimum, the Pentagon should lose out on all funding that it is unable to account for. If they can't keep track of $100 billion one year, the next year they're not sent that $100 billion. Secondly, in the money the Pentagon does spend, when our senators have looked into it, they found gross abuse of our military from its suppliers who are charging thousands of times the cost of the goods they are actually selling our military. So if they were going after actual waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government, the number one place they would have looked at is the Pentagon. But there is a big reason Elon Musk didn't touch the Pentagon when he was trying to comb through the federal budget. It's because he never actually cared about waste, fraud, and abuse to begin with. He cared about getting big government oversight off of his back while he was trying to roll out his robo-taxis. He's trying to get the NLRB off his back while he's trying to union bust. He's trying to get the government off his back while he wants X to become a payment processing platform. And waste, fraud, and abuse never actually crossed his mind as anything more than political rhetoric. And that's why Donald Trump is pushing to increase the Pentagon budget to over $1 trillion a year without concerning himself about all the waste, fraud, and abuse that will happen. Because that was never a real priority of theirs. It was only ever a talking point to trick their base into supporting them so they could enact their true agenda behind the scenes. So, like Bernie Sanders says, right now we have a government of the billionaires, by the billionaires, for the billionaires. Right now, the plutocrats are totally in control. This is class warfare, and they are winning. Class warfare has been the most defining feature of American politics over the last 50 years. And the economic elites fund the two parties for different reasons. The Republicans, they fund in order to enact their own policy agenda. The economic elites and the big business interests use the Republican Party to pass their laws and their priorities. But with the Democratic Party, they are actually trying to block popular legislation from being passed. So what happens is they'll put a ton of money into a handful of Democratic votes in order to just prevent them from reaching the threshold needed to pass popular legislation. So the Democrats can continue talking about really popular ideas while never delivering. And the economic elites always get their way no matter who's in power. And remember, in 2008, Barack Obama promised to kick out all of the lobbyists and the billionaires and the super PACs, and he promised that they would not lead his administration. But he completely and utterly failed and ended up giving in to those corrupt interests. And that's exactly why Bernie Sanders was never allowed to be the Democratic nominee, because he was not able to be bought by the lobbyists and the billionaires, which have a tremendous amount of power over typical establishment Democrats. And when Bernie Sanders presented a legitimate threat to their hold over both the Democratic and Republican parties, they pulled out all the stops to make sure that he was not allowed to be the Democratic nominee. But it is the 1% versus the 99%. So we need to take back our government and put an end to their corruption. And that is going to be a very long and difficult process, but it needs to be done.